This skyline continues to change with plans for new towers in South End, as well as talks about a possible new stadium for the Panthers. Fox 46's Brett Baldick is live this morning in Uptown with some of the history behind the name Uptown, how we got to know Charlotte a little bit. And I keep looking at the backdrop behind us here in the studio, Brett. We're going to have to keep changing this every year because the skyline looks completely different.
Exactly. Our backdrop does not match, but we know that a new stadium has been talked about since 2018 when David Tepper came here, and the talks are starting again with Charlotte Pipe and Foundry moving to Stanley County, and now they are trying to rezone their 55 acres. And we learned from a Charlotte historian that Charlotte Pipe has a big history in the making of what we now know as Uptown.
Charlotte Pipe and Foundry is really deeply embedded in Charlotte history, Center City history.
Charlotte Pipe opened in 1901, but it was even longer before that when the Charlotte we know today was founded.
Colonists came in 250 years ago. They gathered around what's now Trade and Tryon Streets.
That intersection is still considered the center of the city in what we now call Uptown.
Why is it called Uptown? Well, it was called Uptown before it was called downtown. I've been looking back through the newspapers. And it's because it's physically up. Tryon Street runs along a ridge line. And that is because it's an old Indian trading path.
That trading path also followed the I-85 corridor. Today, it's hard to find any trace of that history in Uptown among the skyscrapers. One of the oldest buildings still standing today is the First Presbyterian Church on West Trade Street. Nearby Mint Street is named after a U.S. Mint branch that opened in Charlotte in 1837. The original Mint was torn down but was reassembled as the Mint Museum.
In the 90s, things really started to change when Bank of America began investing in new towers. The Bank of America Corporate Center, still the tallest tower in the center of town.
The Uptown of today, with the hustle and bustle, was far from that just 20 years ago.
Most of the restaurants would close after the lunch hour. The business crowd went home.
Mayor Pro Tem Julie Eisel moved to Charlotte in 1998, just 2 years after Bank of America Stadium opened. Now she's part of a city council who could someday approve a brand new stadium.
That's always on the table if it's done right. But, you know, we had those opportunities with soccer, for instance. The first time it wasn't the right way. The second time it was. So I can't really speculate on that without seeing some kind of a plan.
Now, if you're wondering what used to be at where Bank of America Stadium is now, it was once a neighborhood and also was the location of Good Samaritan's Hospital. And if you actually go to the stadium, there is still a historical marker right outside of the team store. Jason and Morgan, back to you.
Man, Brett, that old picture of Charlotte doesn't look anything like it does today, and it's going to be changing, you know, a couple years from now. Brett, is there any place in Uptown where people can go to kind of still visit and take a look at some of the past history?
There are, as I mentioned, there's a historical marker outside the stadium, but when I was walking around Uptown yesterday, they blend in, but there are still some historical markers spread out throughout Uptown. And if you go into First Ward, Third Ward, Second Ward, there's also some very old homes, 100-year-old homes that are still a part of Uptown. And coming up in the 8:30 half hour, we'll actually discuss about how those ward neighborhoods played a role in the gold rush that we saw hundreds of years ago here in Charlotte. Jason?
Well, that's cool. If you weren't into history, you should be after this. Brett, thank you so much. Appreciate it.